Welcome to Be Well. I'm Lisa Burgaw, pharmacist, yoga teacher, and health coach. Each week, we'll explore simple, science-informed ways for us to move better, feel more resilient, and feel more at home in our bodies. From breath work and strength training to sleep, hormones, and healthy habits, we're here to help you age well and truly thrive, one small step at a time. This is Be Well. Hi, it's Lisa Burgaw here with Be Well, and I am here with my friend Jennifer Schwindt, and we are going to have a really fun episode today. We are going to talk about wine, wellness, and mindful enjoyment. Jennifer is she's working on your Masters of Wine through WSET, and she's going to explain what that means, different than a sommelier. So welcome, Jen, and
Thank
I hope
This is definitely going to be your most
have a
fun
great
episode.
time. It's going to be so fun. I know. People have been looking forward to this one.
Yeah.
I've been telling them about it. Yeah.
So this will be a lot of fun. Yeah, we can talk about the wellness aspects of wine, some of the myths about wine wellness.
Fabulous.
Some of the neuroenology of wine consumption, which is one of my favorite parts of understanding wine and part of the Wine and Spirit Education Trust education.
Yeah.
And if you want to know the differences between what a sommelier is and what a master of wine is, they are two programs that were created at the same time in England in the 1960s. The Court of Master Sommeliers, of course, you've all heard of the sommeliers. They go out and they eat the dirt in order to be able to tell where the wine is from, and they pair it with food.
Right.
They do that beautifully. It takes them years to perfect it.
Yes.
The Master of Wine is a similarly long program. Typically it takes 4+ years in order to achieve it with a thesis, etc. And it's a bit more of a well-rounded program, I would say. There is everything from the ground all the way into the cellar. So you're learning about the topography, the geography, the climate, of all of the wine regions of the world. Then you have to understand every single major grape in the world and how those together in the field equate to what is then put into the barrel, and then what the barrel master, what the cellar master then does in order to perfect their particular kind of wine, their brand, their stamp. If you would. It's not just the grape, it's everything about the winemaker too.
It's so interesting too, you know, like we don't always think, we're so spoiled in our culture now, right? Like we don't grow our own food and we don't harvest our own food and we don't even know the people that bring it to us in the trucks and whatever. So I love this whole from the earth up, and you're going to explain more about that and some myths and how to really enjoy tasting and how to learn more. So this is going to be really fun. I'm excited you're here.
Yeah,
I love
me
it.
too.
So how did you get into this?
Well, I wanted to do something in wine a long time ago because I was living in California, in Los Angeles, and then in Santa Barbara, of course, one of the most beautiful wine regions in the country.
Yeah.
And so I was really introduced to wine when I was an event planner in California and had access to winemakers, to cellars, to private wine tours, private tastings with everybody, something that I really wanted to pursue. But back in the day, which was years ago, there wasn't really an outlet where I was living that you could fit into your spare time to really extensively study wine. You had to go to something like the University of California at Davis, which is, you know, an enology program specific to making wine or growing wine.
Okay.
But then COVID hit, and programs like the Wine and Spirit Education Trust offered programs on the Canvas platform. So from your kitchen dining room table, you could learn, starting from the ground up, what the program was about. You could go through level 1 and level 2.
Wonderful.
In the silo of your kitchen or at your own desk. You'd have to participate with all the wine tastings, so you did have to go out and buy a number of bottles of wine. You could meet with your professors who were all over the world. It was fascinating. And then I thought, you know, I really love this so much, I'm going to go for the level 3, which is right before the level 4 and the thesis. And that's when it went crazy. I mean, that's really where you get a thorough education into wine. And you cannot do that in a silo. So I actually had to fly to California with colleagues, with professors. We went through intensive training, intensive wine every day, 150 wines, spit, and that was very intensive. And then there's a very elaborate test with tasting, blind tasting that goes along with that.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just said it quickly, but the WSET.
Wine and Spirit Education Trust.
I love that.
And they are now offering the lower levels, 1 and 2, all over the country at wine centers.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so you might find one at a local community college, you might find one at a wine store, and they package the curriculum for level 1 and 2 for anyone to enjoy that wants to
Just learn
be able
more.
to teach it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so fascinating.
Yeah.
I do think that's a nice silver lining from COVID. We can study under people that are, all over the world. These masters or experts that we wouldn't be able to study under.
Yeah.
So that is a nice silver lining too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And during COVID, a lot of people started drinking more wine.
Yes, they did.
So we're going to talk about doing it responsibly.
Yes, we can.
And enjoy your wine, right?
Yes, we should.
Yeah, I love that. So a little bit about the benefits, the health benefits of wine. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yes. So wine, as many other vegetables also, have polyphenols, which are big micronutrients that help protect the plant themselves. But then when we ingest them, we of course get the health benefits from those as well. Yeah. Quercetin is a big one that comes from berries and onions, and resveratrol comes from grapes. So you hear a lot about resveratrol. Yeah. It's also a packaged supplement. Now, the one thing that we do have to debunk a little bit of a myth here, that resveratrol is actually a very small part, only 10 parts per million in the average glass of wine.
Right.
Now, in order to get the true health benefits of resveratrol, which are anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, which are great, you actually have to have over 1,000 milligrams daily. So you're either drinking 100 glasses of wine a day or you're taking a supplement. And even that is sort of a microdose of resveratrol to really notice a huge impact on your health. Yeah. So unfortunately.
Yeah. It's good, but it's not going to be the only source of the resveratrol.
Exactly.
Right.
And the studies that we do have on hand, we have fewer and fewer as funding is cut for this sort of thing. But the American Heart Association and American Academy of Science, Engineers, and Medicine have done studies that are then given to the government in order to help them plan the pyramid for food, as well as the alcoholic consumption. Right now, we're still at some of the older numbers because we don't have newer studies, but those that have been done are telling us that there are some wine benefits to drinking alcohol. Now, the studies don't distinguish between alcohol from wine and alcohol from, say, vodka. Okay. Remember, 15% at max for most wines, 80% for vodka.
Right.
So what we're assuming—
Per serving.
Correct.
Yeah.
So what we're assuming is that it is the things like the resveratrol, the blood-thinning aspects of wine, that actually, if you drink in moderation, which is considered 1 drink per day for women, 2 for men, because men metabolize alcohol differently and much, much faster. Yeah. You can have a 15% health benefit to drinking moderately. Right. On the other side, you have a 15% greater instance of heart cardiovascular issues with stroke, sudden death, and cancers if you drink as much as 4 glasses per day. So the tables get completely flipped if you go past those moderation numbers.
I work for the Coumadin Clinic, a blood thinner that you get your blood levels checked to see, where, if your blood's, say, too thick or too thin, just to be basic, but it's not really what it is. And alcohol is a big, it can really shift it. If I have a patient that comes in and all of a sudden their INR is really high, that's what we're testing, I'll ask them and they'll say, oh yeah, it was my birthday this week and I had too much, and they're like at frighteningly high levels. Yes. So it doesn't take that much sometimes. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, there are some benefits, but there are also some
risks.
Big risks.
Yeah.
To indulging too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I do, moderation, like you said, is and enjoying it and tasting it, So you're going to talk a little bit about that today too, because when you're actually tasting it and enjoying it instead of just gulping it down, it's just more pleasurable. Yeah. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And before we jump into it, you said something off camera about how women make really great wine tasters and wine makers. Yeah, so do you want to
Yes.
jump into that, or am I jumping
We could.
ahead?
No, we could
Okay.
jump right into that. What we could do is we could taste some wine now,
Okay.
and then I'd also like to share with you some of the ways that you can enjoy wine if it's given you headaches before, or
Okay.
if you're concerned about the sulfites in wine and things like that.
Okay.
So do you want to try some?
Sure.
Okay.
So tell us what you brought.
This is actually Golden Eye. This is from the Duckhorn portfolio, and they are in
You wanna show it
Napa.
to the screen?
This is sure. There you go. We just did a tasting of the Duckhorn portfolio at a local restaurant, and so I acted as sommelier
fun.
for that. This is actually from the Anderson Valley area, which is a beautiful valley in California, and this is 2022. So a typical wine tasting pour is about 2 ounces. Don't need more than that, or it ends up in the bucket.
Okay. We didn't bring a bucket. We're not going to spit on.
We're not going
on
to spit
camera.
on TV. That's right. That's absolutely right. So there's something to the science of neuroenology, which is taking the pleasure of drinking wine and understanding it from how your brain works. A wonderful reference was written by Gordon Shepherd. This is neuroenology, and this explains a lot of it. He took studies also from the University of Florida, which did quite a bit of wine brain studies.
Yeah.
So if you are going to really enjoy and be able to taste a wine, and how we're trained is we are always looking at the color and the clarity of the wine first. We try to put it against something white in order to really judge that. A lighter colored red wine, like a Pinot Noir, is going to be less heavy than a darker red, like, say, a Cabernet Sauvignon.
Okay.
And I think everybody understands that instinctively. It's due to how the wine is processed and the kind of grape that it is. But when you take your first sniff of wine, before you take your first breath, this is your intake breath that's taking the receptors in your nose and sending it to your brain. The brain center right here for smell is as close to the nose as it can get.
Yeah.
Taste is actually back here.
Okay.
So you're enjoying wine and really anything through your nose first before you
Right,
taste it,
right.
And if you take your first sip of wine, don't fill your mouth with the wine, just a little bit, enough to coat your tongue, to get it around your teeth so that all of the taste receptors in your mouth are being engaged and firing up. And then add a little air to that
Okay.
without choking.
Okay.
Then as you're swallowing the wine, put the breath of air that was in there that's now mixed with the wine, and this is called your retro breath. You're going to breathe out again. And that's going to be
With the wine in your mouth?
with the wine going down the back of
Okay.
your throat. Okay?
You might have to demonstrate that.
Sure.
I don't think I do this correctly.
So as I'm swallowing, I'm breathing that little bit out of my nose.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And it tastes completely different. Once it's mixed with your saliva, it gives you a completely different taste. So
So you take this sip and a little sip
A
of
little
air through
air
just
through
a
your mouth.
tiny little opening in your mouth. Okay.
yeah.
What about the legs? I remember when I was a waitress,
Legs is actually,
they'd talk
yeah,
about that.
the legs
like,
is actually the amount of
looking at them.
alcohol.
Okay.
The amount of alcohol. So, and as it's evaporating, it leaves that little trail down there.
Okay.
That's what that is.
So you see the little legs
You can
coming
see
down the
little legs.
glass.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And you're going to see that more in this kind of a glass than you would say a Bola Grande, which is for a big fat Cabernet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. Enjoy. What do you taste?
So that sip of air in with it made it so much more flavorful.
Yes.
And it was sweet. And then on the breath out, I got a little more of the tart.
Yes.
Tart's probably not the right word for it, though. It
Yeah.
wasn't tangy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The acid level. So if you're smelling
That's
it,
so interesting that
when
it's
we
different.
value a wine professionally, what we're doing is we are looking at the color, the clarity. You know, how does it look in the glass? And then we're smelling it. We're evaluating on 5 different points. We want at least 5 descriptors of the wine. Then when we taste it, we're doing another 5 descriptors. They can be exactly the same or they can be different.
Okay.
In many cases, there's maybe a crossover. And then at the end, we're evaluating the wine for whether it has a long finish, a short finish, whether it's complex or simple. And then whether it's going to have staying power in the bottle, in your cellar.
Oh, okay.
Or whether you're going to drink it now.
Okay.
So Professionally, there are about 28 points that we instantly are evaluating, and if we're documenting them, everybody has their own little way of notating these things, but in order seems to work for most of us. And again, it's 28 things that you're actually evaluating when you're doing the wine professionally.
So when you say if you're going to drink it now or leave it in your cellar, is that when you look at? I know sometimes the vintage, like that was a good year for the grapes, or is this wine better when it's aged longer, or is this one better when it's newer? Like, is there
so in tasting
any
wine,
way to
we
know
have,
that when you're just shopping for
Sure.
wine?
So you have the initial burst of the flavors, and those typically come from the grape.
Yeah.
And then you have a second burst of flavors that are a completely different category, and they might include like vanilla, or more of a floral note, or some cinnamons,
fruity,
or the musk, or the floor, you know, decomposing things like that.
Okay.
That actually comes from the fermentation.
Okay.
And then the aging is what gives it what we call tertiary flavors, and that's where if you don't taste those flavors, but you know that you've got a grape that could be extended, the life of it could be extended, and the flavors could be even more developed as it sits in the bottle, then that's one that you're going to hold on to.
Okay, that's so great.
Yeah.
And so let's go back to the women tasting.
Yes. So there
That's
are
fascinating, and we do metabolize differently. I mean, women and men have different,
Correct.
biologies.
correct.
Yeah.
So, but when you're smelling and tasting wine, the molecules themselves don't have smell or taste. It's your brain that's giving them those
Okay.
tastes.
Okay.
So this is why I think it's so fascinating. So when I was working with professors in California, one of them was from Poland, and she was actually stationed on the other side of the planet, tasting and teaching wine. But when she said, "Oh, don't you taste the blackberries in this, and don't you taste the maybe the finish of quince or something like that?" They did not have those fruits in their vocabulary.
Oh.
So she had to relearn a whole different vocabulary in order to describe the wine that was familiar to their brains and their taste buds.
Got it.
So
Yeah.
when I say I smell cherries and I smell a little bit of licorice, I smell this, that, and the other thing, you would have to have that frame of reference.
Right.
So, and because you're basing it on your memories, women typically tend to be better tasters. This is true, because we assign memory to taste and smells more
Okay.
than men typically do.
Okay.
Typically.
And isn't smell like our oldest memory
Correct.
like trigger?
Correct.
Yeah.
So as you're smelling this with your husband, he might say, "Oh yeah, I smell raspberries," and you might say, "I smell cooked raspberries. I remember when my grandma made that pie."
Okay.
So it's and the difference between raspberry and cooked raspberries in the world of wine is huge.
Okay.
When you're actually going to be rating a wine and
Right.
judging it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
and we hold those memories for longer than men. So really good male wine tasters will, maybe peak out at age 40. Women wine tasters will actually keep developing until their 60s.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And tell us more about.
That's not me. This is all in the book.
Yeah.
That's not me saying this, guys.
And about this vineyard and the women.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So they had a lot. This vineyard in particular had a lot to start with, because they had wonderful Prohibition era vineyards to start with back in the 70s. Their first, one of their first winemakers was Mark Beringer of the famous Beringer family,
Okay.
and they've been going strong, acquiring really good acreage out in the Napa and Sonoma areas. But in 2014, they hired a female chemist. Renee Ari is her name. And in 2017, with only just 3 years under her belt as a winemaker, she produced a Merlot that was rated by Wine Spectator for the 2017 vintage as the #1 wine in the world.
That's amazing.
3 years of winemaking
Yeah.
experience.
And it's the chemistry. You said that
Yes.
she's a chemist.
Yes.
And so it's so interesting because there's so much behind it.
Yes.
Obviously there's chemicals, and we don't think about that when we think about wine as grapes.
Yeah.
But there is chemistry in that it's like
How you ferment
a
it, what you
beautiful
ferment it.
combination just done right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whether you add artificial or created yeasts, or whether you use the yeasts that are naturally felt in the wine.
Yeah.
There's so many ways that you can
Yeah.
try. And if you've ever tried to make wine in your bathtub at home,
No.
everything can go wrong.
When I was little, where we lived, there was wine grapes that grew in the woods behind our house, and my dad would go pick them. And I remember peeling the skins off of them, and he would put them through a sieve, and he'd make his wine. I was little, so I never drank it, but it was probably disgusting. But I love the smell of the wine grapes, and that still brings back memories. Like if I go to a vineyard for a concert or whatever, and I smell the grapes in the
They're very, very, they're very floral, and
Yeah.
wine grapes are actually very different from commercial.
Yeah, you don't eat the whole grape.
Yeah, you don't eat the whole grape. There's a lot of the byproduct of the grape that ends up in the wine, especially for red wine too.
Right. Do you want to explain the difference between red and white wine, how they're harvested?
Sure.
The red and white grapes.
Sure, yeah. And this may not be news for people, but when a winemaker is making a white wine, typically 90% of the time it's made with a white grape. And they press the juice and then they instantly start to turn it to wine.
Okay.
And there are a number of different processes that go into that until it gets into the bottle. With red wine, there is any length of time from either just minutes to hours to months where the grapes will sit in the juice with their skins, with their seeds, and with the stems.
Yeah.
In many instances. And so that's where you're going to develop more tannins. That's where you're going to develop more color, more complexity, and more body because you're keeping it on the stems. And that's how it develops the red color, obviously. And then you strain all that out, and then you start making your wine from
And then
there.
they ferment it.
Yeah.
So you brought up tannins, and I know that a lot of people tell me I can't drink wine or I can't drink wine with sulfites. Can you explain a little bit about the chemicals that people tend to have issues with and maybe some myths about that?
Yes, definitely. Let's talk about the first one, which is sulfites. Sulfites are a naturally occurring byproduct of the fermentation process, and it's natural.
Yeah.
There are and they're present in every wine. If it's been fermented, there are going to be sulfites in the wine. The sulfites are less than 10 parts per million in your average, but when you dry fruit, when you anytime you're trying to preserve something and not have it oxidize, sulfites do the job. And so an apricot, for example, has 3,000 parts per million in just an apricot. And in one apricot,
dried apricot.
Yes. So really, it's one of the smaller offenders when it comes to sulfites if it's naturally occurring in the wine, and that's different from added sulfites. We can talk about that next. But sulfites don't actually. It has been debunked that it's not the sulfites that give you a headache. Sulfites, if you have a true, either allergy or they bother you, they're going to give you hives, and they could even give you swelling of your tongue, almost like an anaphylactic.
Oh, okay.
That's the sulfites. Now, added sulfites on top of that are actually used as a preservative, sodium dioxide. So they pump it into the bottle in order to keep it from oxidizing and to keep the fermentation from stopping. It stops right there in the bottle. It's just a tiny little bit, but that can add as much as 350 parts per million into a bottle of wine. So if you do feel as though you have a problem or an intolerance with sulfites, we are required in the United States of America and in Australia to mark on the bottle added sulfites. And
that's good to
if it's more than 10 parts per million, they have to put that on the bottle. Okay? Now, you're not going to find a lot of bottles with sulfites in Italy, France, South Africa, because they come from smaller farms. And they're not preserving for the long haul. If you have an intolerance for sulfites, walk right by the box wine. Walk right by it. Because in order to make those stable for transportation and to keep the wine exactly how each box needs to be according to the winemaker, so it always tastes the same when you buy it, they have to add sulfites.
That's good to know.
They have to add them. And sweet wines require more sulfites because when sweet wine goes into the bottle, it could still ferment, and again, the sulfites prevent that fermentation from happening. And
Is that because there's more sugar?
There's more sugar.
Yeah,
So it wants to still keep doing its thing. The yeast wants to keep going in there, so if you add the sulfur dioxide, then that stops the process. Yeah. The bigger thing I think that people should hear about is really tannins. Tannins are the hidden headache maker. if you're not drinking a lot of water with your wine, that's also a headache maker.
For sure.
Let's be sure.
I learned that in pharmacy school, like
Yeah.
90 or 95% of a hangover is dehydration.
Dehydration,
Yeah.
that's right. But in order to get that beautiful red color in there, you're using the grapes, the skins, the seeds, sometimes the stems, and they all contain tannins. And the tannins are what give you, the tannins don't actually have a taste. The tannins actually give you the mouthfeel of having sort of like that bitter taste in your mouth.
Yeah. More
and
sensation, not
more
flavor.
sensation,
Yep.
not a flavor, exactly. But then, so you shouldn't have to necessarily worry about a white wine and tannins, except for one thing. American oak, Hungarian oak, and French oak, the barrels, especially if they're new, contain quite a bit of tannins. So something like a Chardonnay is going to have a lot of tannin in it because it comes from the oak.
So if something is like described as oaky flavor or buttery, yep,
then you know it's going to come from the wood of the barrel.
Okay, so there could be more tannins in there.
Correct. And that is where you're going to get the headache.
Okay.
If you are susceptible to tannin headaches.
Yeah. That's good to know.
Yeah. And again, you will find less tannins in a lighter wine like a Pinot Noir like this one than you would a Cabernet Sauvignon.
Okay.
Yeah. Or a Merlot or a Zinfandel. You know, this is going to be a lighter wine.
Okay. Yes, I wore my Burgundy today,
Yes,
and
so
you wore your
match.
rosé.
So if we spill, yeah, right. Sure, bubbles.
Bubbles.
Bubbles, yeah.
Champagne bubbles, yes. And yeah, so the dried fruit you talked about, that's so interesting. So if a wine has a description of, fruity flavors, do they add dried fruit to them?
No.
No, okay.
No.
So that's just the flavor from the grapes coming up
from the grapes
vineyard.
itself. Yeah. From the grapes themselves. Soil imparts a lot of flavor into a wine. My husband and I were just in Sancerre in the Loire Valley, and we went to one vineyard that was planted on a tectonic plate. And so there were two completely different soils.
Oh my goodness.
3 meters apart from each other.
So wild.
They both had the Sancerre, Sauvignon Blanc is always a Sancerre. They had both planted literally 3 meters apart, and then we went into the vineyard or into the wine cellar, and we tasted wine from one soil versus the other soil, completely different.
Yeah.
From the same harvest.
He told me about your trip, and he said you guys had such a great time, and that when you were there, people found out that you were studying to be a master of wine, and you got like extra special treatments and tours and
yes, I also speak French, so
perfect.
A fellow wine lover speaking French to the winemaker, they came out in spades. Oh, let me get you a bottle. Pop, we'll try this one too. Pop, we'll try this one too. They appreciate it. They're farmers. That's what they do.
They love that you appreciate their product.
Exactly.
So that was really cool. Yeah, he came back really excited about that.
Yeah.
This is the coolest thing.
He goes, I just hang with her.
That's what he goes, I'm just going to follow her. She knows what she's talking about. So another thing that we talked about is organic versus biodynamic.
Yes.
So can you explain
absolutely.
that difference?
Right. So organic has been really coming up in the world, in the winemaking regions of the world. And I'm glad to hear that it is. Yeah. There are organic winemaking processes and there are organic growing processes.
Okay.
So you have to sort of know the difference between what you're doing there. But organic plantings and farms or vineyards actually are able to use fertilizers and soil enhancements as long as they're natural. So they're not using man-made chemicals to treat pests and to kill weeds. They're using organic items.
So organic fertilizers.
Organic fertilizers, yes, exactly. Okay. Introducing ladybugs that are going to get at certain pests, things like that. Biodynamic. Oh, and by the way, if you want to be certified organic in most parts of the world, you have to actually prove that you've been using these techniques for 3+ years.
Okay.
In order to show that your soil no longer has anything that may be residue from a previous non-organic supplement. Biodynamic is a completely different thing. Okay. Biodynamic goes back to when we first started making wine as humans. Okay. The techniques follow the stars, astrological charts, which tell you what day of the month you're going to pick your grapes, regardless of whether you think they're ready or not. the astrological chart tells you, you also are not adding anything to the soil except a natural mineral. So you may want to, you could add like zinc or magnesium or nickel or whatever, copper into your soil, but you're getting the nutrients for your plants from the composting of the weeds. You never remove anything. You just till everything under. And it's more of, it's not as much of a process for making the wine as much as it is well known for being how it's grown.
Got it. And what about, you said 3 years to be certified
5
for
years
organic?
to be certified for biodynamic. Yeah. It's hard to do because especially with the change in climate that they're experiencing out there in the fields, 1 year might be completely different. And if you're using the stars to tell you when to pick instead of the weather forecast, you know, it's a challenge. It really is a challenge.
I totally can imagine that. That's just wild. All right, so we're running out of time. This is like, I know, it's just such a short little time, and there's just so much to talk about. So this show is called Be Well, and we're talking about how we can drink wine in a fun, enjoyable way and take some of these tips. I have a couple of rapid fire fun questions. Are you up for them? Yeah. All right. So what is your favorite varietal right now?
The one right in front of me.
Okay.
I love all varietals, and that has been the absolute pleasure of getting to know wine better. I have tried so many different, hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of wine. I don't have a favorite. The ones that have the best stories that go along with the experience of drinking it, that's really, that's your favorite.
I'm funny, like if it's got a fun name.
Yes.
Or a cute
cool
label.
Right.
Oh,
everybody thinks
and they're really good about that because, you know, they might not have the best wine, but they have the best label, so I'm sure that
you're
they
gonna
sell
buy
it, right?
Yeah.
And so probably your answer, I probably know. Red, white, or rosé?
All of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of them. And you forgot bubbles.
And bubbles.
And bubbles too. Bubbles come in red and white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen them in rosé.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so champagne is from a specific region. So any bubbly wine is not necessarily, you can't call it champagne.
You can't call it champagne unless it was grown in a very small appellation on the eastern side of Paris. It's a large region. It's one of France's largest, actually. But and they have very, very strict growing and manufacturing processes. And it can get expensive because they have to keep it in the bottle and hold it for so long in order to call it champagne. Prosecco made with the Galera grape is a nice alternative. Cremant, also from France, and then Cava from Spain. Yeah, and they tend to be lighter and fruitier because they're not as yeasty because they don't stay in the bottle with the lees and the yeast for so long.
When I was in Portugal, we had cava and it was delicious. It was very light and because I don't do well with white wine. I think it's just too much sugar, and I did okay with that. The best beginner wine.
The best beginner wine, I think, is one that's not oaked because you can appreciate the grape more than you can the aftertaste that oak and the fermentation process gives to it. So, and remember that when you go into the liquor store, don't go to the same place you always go to. Don't go to the Chardonnays or the Cabernet Sauvignons. Go to where it says France or Italy so that you can try some of these same things. Like we call it Pinot Noir, but in Italy it's called Primitivo. It could be Chardonnay here in the United States, but it's also called Chablis in France. But it's not as heavy as we make it here. So, and Sauvignon Blanc is actually Sancerre or Pouilly-Fumé in France. So branch out a little.
I love that.
The other thing I also love to tell people is that if you have your phone with you, you can look up almost anything about a bottle of wine. So if you want to know, does it have sulfites? Does it get a green rating from like Wine Spectator? You can look all of that up. Wine.com, great retailer. Because they say if you like this one, then you could also try this. See if that's in your local liquor store.
Those are some really great tips.
Yeah.
Any other tips you'd like our listeners, our viewers, to walk away with?
Yes. The biggest myth of wine is that when you open the bottle, you have to finish it, and that is not true. If you have a very special bottle of wine, or if you're home by yourself and you want to have some with your Doritos, I'm no shaming here. This is a very cool gadget that is actually one of the best things out there. It's called a Coravin. I don't know if you can see that. It's got a very fine needle. You put it, unopen your bottle, and you put this down. It allows you to take out through the cork and it displaces what you pour out through the cork with CO2, so that the rest of the bottle stays intact.
Oh, so the cork doesn't actually come out.
The cork never
It
comes
goes
out.
right through the cork.
And you can pierce
You
this
pour it through
multiple
it.
times to get as many glasses as you want, and it
Wow.
never allows oxygen to get into the bottle.
So how long will that last for? I always thought it had to be drank within a few days. If you
Weeks.
didn't finish. Wow.
Weeks.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise you're like, well, I have to finish it.
finish it now. Big myth, big myth. Yes, this is how to save a really great bottle of wine.
I love that. And how about, you mentioned, was it wine.com? What did you
Wine.com.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
wine.com.
Any other resources you'd like to share?
Well, I think that
You have the Wine Spectator.
Wine Spectator is a great one. There's also, if you want to go and you want to taste a lot of wines, for a couple $100 you can go to James Suckling, does every quarter or so. They do hundreds of wines, all in a big conference setting.
Fun.
So you can meet people from all over the world and taste wines from all over the world. That's a
wonderful.
lot of fun.
I love that.
Yeah.
I've learned so much. This is like so wonderful. And it's just so nice to just really enjoy a couple sips and without
know.
chugging it down,
Without
right?
chugging it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't need to have a whole bottle.
We just need Doritos now.
We just need Doritos.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you,
Be
Lisa.
well. I hope you have a wonderful week and that you learned something. Enjoy your week.
Thank you for joining me on Be Well. I hope today's conversation inspires at least one simple way for you to support yourself. Before you step back into your day, pause and choose one uplifting action you can gift yourself. What's your one thing going to be? Remember, small, consistent steps create meaningful change. Until next time, take a breath, take care, and be well.